whispers in the dark. They say darkness is just the absence of light, but they're wrong. Darkness is alive, waiting to swallow you whole. It moves, it breathes, and tonight, it spoke to me. It all started like any other evening. The sun dipped behind the horizon, painting the sky with shades of purple and red. I had just finished my shift at the hospital, the fluorescent light still flickering in my eyes. I was exhausted, every bone in my body ached, but the thought of a quiet night at home kept me going. I live in a small town where nothing ever happens, the kind of place where everyone knows your name and your business. But that night, something was different. There was a heaviness in the air, a stillness that made the hairs on the back of my neck stand on end. I brushed it off as just the fatigue messing with my mind and headed home. My apartment was in an old building, the kind with creaky floors and walls so thin you could hear your neighbour's TV. But it was home. As I unlocked the door and stepped inside, I was greeted by the familiar scent of lavender. I had left a candle burning in the living room earlier, hoping it would help me relax when I got back. But as I walked through the small hallway, I noticed something strange. The candle wasn't lit anymore, yet the scent lingered, stronger than before. My heart skipped a beat. I stood there listening, but the only sound was my own breathing. I shook my head, telling myself I was being paranoid, and headed to the kitchen to grab a drink. That's when I heard it. A whisper, so faint I almost missed it.
Help me.
I froze, my hand gripping the fridge door. It came again, more urgent this time.
Please. Help me.
I turned around slowly, my eyes scanning the empty room. There was no one there. My heart pounded in my chest as I forced myself to move. "Who's there?" I called out, my voice trembling. No answer, just the oppressive silence. I reached for the knife block on the counter, my fingers wrapping around the handle of a chef's knife. My knuckles were white, but it made me feel a little safer. I cautiously moved through the apartment, checking each room. Nothing. No one. Maybe I was just hearing things. I was tired after all. But as I stood in the middle of my living room, trying to convince myself that everything was fine, the whisper came again.
Please. Help.
It was coming from the walls. My blood ran cold. I backed away, my heart hammering in my chest, but the whispers grew louder, more desperate. I could feel them now, crawling under my skin, seeping into my bones.
Get out.
The voice hissed. I didn't need to be told twice. I turned and ran, but as I reached the door, it slammed shut on its own. The lock clicked, trapping me inside. I was shaking, my breath coming in short gasps. This wasn't real. It couldn't be real.
Please.
The whisper was right behind me now, hot breath on my neck. I spun around, the knife raised, but there was nothing there. Just the darkness, thicker than it had ever been, closing in on me. Suddenly, the room plunged into complete blackness. The lights flickered once, twice, and then died, leaving me in the suffocating dark. My heart raced, my mind spinning with fear. I reached out blindly, trying to find anything to hold on to, but the darkness seemed to swallow me whole. Then, I felt it. Cold, clammy hands wrapped around my wrists, yanking me backward. I screamed, thrashing wildly, but the grip was unyielding. The whispers surrounded me, overlapping, a cacophony of desperate voices all begging for help, for release. I was dragged across the floor, my feet kicking out, trying to find purchase. My back hit the wall with a thud, and I gasped in pain. The hands were pulling me down, into the floor, into the darkness. I clawed at the wall, my nails scraping against the plaster, but it was no use. I was being consumed, swallowed by the very shadows that surrounded me. Help me! I screamed, the irony of the plea lost on me. But the whispers only grew louder, more insistent. The hands pulled harder, dragging me down into the cold, unyielding blackness. And then, just as suddenly as it began, it stopped. The hands released me, the whispers silenced. I lay on the floor, gasping for breath, my body trembling uncontrollably. The darkness remained, but it no longer felt alive. It was just dark. I don't know how long I lay there, too afraid to move, to breathe. But eventually, the lights flickered back on, weak and sputtering, casting long shadows across the room. I forced myself to stand, my legs shaky beneath me. The room was exactly as it had been before, as if nothing had happened. But something had happened. I knew it, felt it deep in my bones. The darkness had spoken to me, touched me, and it had left its mark. I staggered to the door, my hand trembling as I reached for the lock. It turned easily, the door swinging open without a sound. I didn't look back as I stepped out into the hallway, the cool air a stark contrast to the suffocating heat of my apartment. I knew I couldn't stay there, not after what had happened. I needed to get out, to go somewhere, anywhere that wasn't here. But as I took a step forward, I felt it again. The cold, clammy hands brushing against my skin, the whispers curling around my ears.
Help us.
I stumbled backward, my breath catching in my throat. The hallway stretched out before me, impossibly long, the shadows deepening with every second. I turned and ran, my feet pounding against the floor, but no matter how fast I moved, the hallway never ended. The whispers followed me, growing louder, more frantic, more angry.
Help us. Help us.
I reached the end of the hallway, or maybe it was the beginning. I couldn't tell anymore. The door to my apartment loomed before me, slightly ajar, the darkness inside spilling out like ink. I tried to back away, but the shadows reached out, pulling me in.
Help us!
They screamed, the voices now a deafening roar. I was dragged back into the darkness, the door slamming shut behind me. The lights flickered once more, then died, leaving me in the pitch black, alone with the whispers. They didn't stop this time. They surrounded me, filling my mind, my body, my soul with their pleas, their cries for help. And as the darkness closed in, suffocating, consuming, I realized with a cold, sickening certainty that I would never leave this place. I was theirs now, just another voice in the dark, another whisper lost in the shadows. Help us, I whispered, my voice joining the chorus, and the darkness answered.